Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable Behavior Explained. Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. We are going to talk about the healing of the four horsemen of the apocalypse collectively today. This is the last of the series of all of the episodes in the four horsemen of the apocalypse. As you may know, we broke down the four different concepts from criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling and contempt. And these are all from the research from John Gottman. And I think these are all very important concepts to understand in relationships rupture, and then also how do we repair. And so we've slowed down to look at each one of those through the lens of attachment, trauma, and as a nervous system response. And today we're going to zoom back out and talk about how healing actually happens when these patterns show up together, because they almost always do. So the four horsemen don't exist in isolation. They show up in cycles. They reinforce one another and they tell a story, not of failure, but of a nervous system doing their best to survive disconnection. So the four horsemen work together in pretty predictable patterns. And we're going to talk about why frequency matters more than perfection, because we all are going to fall into some of these patterns, how attachment and trauma keep these cycles alive, and what repair really looks like, not just once, but time and time again. And how couples or people in relationships can move from that protection and disconnection to repair and connection. So this episode's about hope. It's about grounded realism and really level setting your expectations around conflict is part of all relationships, and these habits and patterns are part of our negative interaction cycles. So one of the most important things to understand about the four horsemen is they are not character flaws. They are patterns of protection. Criticism is a protest for unmet needs. Defensiveness is protection against shame. Stonewalling is a response to overwhelm. And contempt is pain that's hardened into armor. Each one of these makes sense when you understand the nervous system underneath it. The Gottmans are pretty clear that every couple or partnership uses these patterns sometimes. But what predicts relationship breakdown isn't their presence, it's their frequency, rigidity, and lack of repair. The horsemen don't mean your relationship is broken. They mean your system or your nervous system is under strain. And so let's talk a little bit about how those horsemen work together in cycles. The four horsemen tend to show up in predictable sequences. A common cycle looks like this. So we've got one partner that feels disconnected and then uses criticism to be heard. The other partner feels attacked and then responds with defensiveness. The interaction escalates until someone becomes overwhelmed and then stonewalls. And over time, unresolved pain hardens into contempt. So you can see the pattern of the interaction. And that cycle repeats, especially if we don't know how to get out of it. And we don't know that it's happening, or we don't know why it's happening. So one partner might say, "You never listen." And then the other says, "That's not true. You're exaggerating. You are so hyperbolic. And then the conversation shuts down. And then resentment grows. And then the sarcasm begins. And the eye rolling creeps in. Each partner feels totally justified in their reaction. Each nervous system feels threatened. And each response makes the next one more likely. So the horsemen feed on each other. But so does healing. And it's okay to be the first one to take the leap towards repair. So when we look at this from an attachment and trauma perspective, that's what keeps the four horsemen alive. From the attachment perspective, those horsemen are strategies to preserve connection. When we're in conflict or rupture, we're in disconnection. And even when those behaviors do the opposite, they're a little self-sabotaging. So with criticism, it says, "Please notice me." Defensiveness says, "Please don't reject me." Stonewalling says, "Please stop, I can't handle this." And contempt says, "Please don't hurt me again." From that AIP or EMDR lens, these patterns are driven by early memory networks. These were survival strategies that were needed as a child when behaviors that happened in the home created predictable patterns, and then protection was needed. We have the home where our needs were not met, our emotions weren't safe, conflict felt dangerous, repair just didn't happen. And so the current conflict activates those old information, memory networks, and then the body reacts rather than responds. And it's 1 million times faster than the brain can even intervene because it doesn't have prefrontal cortex involvement. Those horsemen are often old survival strategies. They're trying to solve a present day problem with old skills. We're not using the right tools because we didn't necessarily have them, and we certainly don't have experience in practicing them. And so now we need to talk about why frequency and repair matter more than the elimination of these things. Please don't beat yourself up if you've made improvements and you still fall into some of these patterns, because that self-shame and that self-interjective shame does not help the situation. So one of the biggest myths about healthy relationships is that good couples don't do these things, and that is not a reality. They do. All happy couples and really seemingly healthy couples have these patterns too. The difference is how often these horsemen show up and how quickly they're recognized, how quickly and consistently repair happens. And Gottman's research emphasizes that repair attempts, not perfection, are what protect relationships. So again, it's, can you circle back and say something about what just happened? So repair can look like a pause, a softening, an apology, accountability, sometimes humor. We can throw in humor when those things happen because we realize there's embarrassment with the behavior. We can say, can we return to this conversation later? And then a bid for reconnection. So it's not the fight that predicts the future. It's what happens after that really is important. So when we're working on healing these horsemen, we're kind of working on healing them all together. Healing happens in relationships when we shift from content to process. We're shifting from who's right or who's to blame and to what's happening between us, what unmet needs are happening, and what I don't know how to express in a more effective way. Across all horsemen, healing does require a few things. We have to have awareness. We have to name the pattern, and we have to do this without blame, which is tricky when we're hurting. It requires regulation in our nervous system, helping that nervous system to settle down, get back in your prefrontal cortex before trying to solve the problem. And if you need more skills on that, I have an episode on coping skills earlier in, I think it was season 2. So check that out if you're like, I need some of those at the ready. It requires vulnerability, which is replacing that protection or that armor with some honest, vulnerable, emotional expression. And Brene Brown talks about vulnerability as that emotional exposure or risk without any guarantee. So this is scary. It also requires like some structure or agreements and accountabilities around the breaks, repair, and what re-engagement needs to look like. So we need to understand that we have this pattern and process, and that we need to make some changes so that they don't continue to happen. Consistent repair, returning again and again, even when it's uncomfortable, is how we break this pattern and we create new memory. So when you're working on healing these 4 horsemen, it's helpful to have some shared language. Things like, hey, we're in the cycle. We've fallen into this pattern. This is one of the 4 horsemen. Let's hold back. Let's pause. Let's take a beat. Let's come back in a minute. I want connection. I don't want winning. And this strategy is not going to create that connection. It's going to create disconnection. Healing isn't about avoiding the horsemen. It's about meeting them with better skill, with a little bit more patience, with a little bit more timeliness, and certainly practice and repair and circling back. So we can earn secure connection and secure attachment. And let me tell you what that looks like. I know this is something that my husband and I have hard fought for. Doesn't mean we don't fight. Doesn't mean we don't fall into some of these patterns. We certainly do. But we know how to go back and take accountability for them now. And as couples heal these patterns, you'll often see less intensity during conflict. You'll see faster repair. You'll see more curiosity. You'll see even when they take one of these horsemen and they drop into one of them, they'll pause themselves and fix it faster. There tends to be more emotional safety because we can count on that pattern changing because we see change and it's less hopeless. There's greater tolerance for the differences. And there's a sense of being more on the same team and just having a moment of disconnection related to a specific content or topic rather than the relationship itself. Secure attachment and secure connection isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of trust that the repair will happen again. And that's something that takes practice to build, because security is built through the repeated experiences of rupture and repair, of conflict and resolution. And all good relationships have a lot of practice at those things because we all bring our own histories to our relationships, our pains, our wounds, our patterns, our habits, and our trauma. And so the 4 horsemen are not the end of the story. They're the beginning of understanding what your relationships need. When we stop moralizing these patterns and start understanding them, we create more space for the keys to successful relationships, which are compassion and accountability and ultimately change, because that's how we grow together. Healing those horsemen together means choosing curiosity over blame, choosing connection over protection, and choosing repair over avoidance. Remember that relationships don't thrive because people never struggle. They thrive because people and partners learn how to come back to each other and repair when that happens. So I really hope this series has been helpful for you. If it has, please share it with somebody that could benefit. It's why I did the show. I want good information to be reachable to all people. Make sure that you subscribe if you find this content helpful and you want to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you want more information on trauma-informed conversations, check out some of the other shows. Make sure to follow me on my social media, Kelly O'Horo, or visit my website. I do see all of my comments, so I'm happy to respond to those as well. Thank you so much for listening to our show. We hope that you found it beneficial. And until next time, don't forget to lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.